Delhi crime has always stood in a league of its own. Among Indian crime dramas, very few shows even come close to the level of authenticity, grit, and emotional impact that Delhi crime consistently delivers. They say you can't catch lightning in a bottle twice, but somehow this team has managed to do it 3 times. Season 3 doesn't just meet expectations, in many ways it surpasses them, but at the same time, it takes certain creative risks that left me genuinely uncomfortable, and not always in the way the creators intended. Before diving deep, I want to address something right at the start. Yes, Delhi crime deals with dark, sensitive subject matter, that's the core of its identity, but this time they come extremely close to crossing a line that filmmakers silently agree never to cross. There is an unwritten rule in cinema about how far you can go showing violence involving infants and children, and in season 3 the makers flirt dangerously with that boundary. There is a scene early in the show where an infant is found in a critical condition, injured, bleeding with the bite marks on her face. The visuals and the implications hit you like a punch to the stomach. As an audience, you don't know what happened to her. Those bite marks alone are enough to send chills down your spine. For a horrifying moment, I wondered if the creators were about to take this in a direction similar to a Serbian film. If you have never heard of that film, trust me, don't Google it. It is notorious worldwide for crossing every imaginable boundary, and it's one of the few films that people across the internet unanimously agree should remain censored. And I genuinely feared Delhi crime was leaning toward that route. That's something I absolutely cannot watch. I can tolerate a lot in cinema, but harm toward children or animals is where I draw the line. In recent years, many filmmakers, especially in the West, have begun dramatizing such extremes purely for shock value. But I always believed that Indian creators, especially in mainstream Hindi cinema and OTT, would not go that far. This is still a country where people get slapped with court cases for cracking jokes, so showing something genuinely depraved felt unlikely. Still, that 1% fear was there, and because of that, the first couple of episodes became very uncomfortable. Not because of graphic content, but because of the implication of what might be shown or what might have happened. Plot overview. Season 3 revolves around two major cases. The first involves the infant who is brought into the ICU under mysterious and disturbing circumstances. The second case focuses on human trafficking, especially young girls being lured with the promise of jobs and then smuggled across states and borders. These two cases, though seemingly separate at first, eventually intertwine in unexpected ways. DIG Vatika Chaturvedi, played brilliantly by Shefali Shah, begins the season posted in Assam. She learns about a major trafficking route that funnels girls from the northeast to Delhi via trucks. Recognizing the scale of the crime, she returns to Delhi to tackle the case from home ground. Now here's where I had my first issue with the season structure. The show is titled Delhi Crime. When I saw the trailer and noticed Vatika posted in Assam, I wondered how this would tie into Delhi, and honestly they solved that too quickly. She returns to Delhi almost immediately. The season only has 6 episodes, yet they still spend time on this Assam posting subplot without really using it in a meaningful way. If they wanted to explore Assam, they should have let Vatika investigate there for at least half the season, build the tension from that region, then naturally bring her back to Delhi. Instead, it feels like unnecessary setup with very little payoff. Pacing issues. Even though the season is short, just 6 episodes, it somehow feels both rushed and stretched at the same time. The investigation around Badi Didi, played by Huma Qureshi, progresses shockingly fast. As soon as Vatika becomes aware of her, she tracks her down with almost no resistance. There's barely any build-up or cat and mouse tension. But on the other hand, the final container yard sequence drags on endlessly. It feels like the show is artificially creating suspense where there doesn't need to be any. And because Badi Didi's operation is unrealistic, she apparently runs this massive trafficking nexus with almost no gang members. The finale loses impact. There are no major obstacles, no big confrontation, no layers to peel, just a long chase in a container yard with hardly anyone to fight or outsmart. It's one of the few times Delhi crime felt undercooked. The confusing moral stand. Here's another major issue for me, and it's something that weakens the season's emotional and thematic clarity. This season sympathizes way too much with the baby's attacker. Let me explain. On one hand, the show wants to highlight how women are exploited, manipulated and trafficked. That's important, that's powerful. But at the same time, it also shows women as the perpetrators, not just Badi Didi, but also the person responsible for the infant's condition. That duality could have been powerful, but the creators end up softening the baby's attacker's actions so much that it sends mixed signals. At one moment we are horrified and wondering what sort of a monster could do that to a baby, and then the show tries to evoke sympathy for the same person. Instead of exploring moral complexity, it feels like the creators were scared to take a firm stance. They didn't want to be labeled woke, but also didn't want to appear conservative or harsh. As a result, the messaging becomes blurry. This makes me think the creators initially intended a much darker route, something closer to the Serbian film tone, but backed off at the last moment out of fear of controversy or censorship. And because of that sudden left turn, the emotional impact gets muddled. Strengths that still make Delhi Crime outstanding. Now, despite these criticisms, Delhi Crime Season 3 still delivers in many ways. It remains a gripping, atmospheric, and incredibly humane show. One of the strongest aspects continues to be the chemistry among its recurring characters. Their individual arcs evolve beautifully across seasons. Rasika Dugal's arc is one of the highlights. Her character is now divorced, learning to stand on her own, growing in confidence, and becoming sharper at her job. The divorce is portrayed with maturity, and her evolution since season 1 is genuinely impressive. Vartika and her daughter's relationship also feels more grounded. They've finally come to terms with each other and their bond has strengthened in an authentic, understated way. Anshuman Pushkar as Rahul is phenomenal. All through the season I suspected that he might have harmed baby Noor, and he played the ambiguity so well. But the creators didn't fully utilize him. His character deserved more depth and at least a couple of iconic scenes. Huma Qureshi as Badi Didi, however, falls short. She lacks nuance, her Haryanvi accent feels inconsistent, and her overall screen presence doesn't match the menace or complexity the character needed. Meeta Vashisht, who plays Kalyani, actually gives a more controlled and layered performance. Honestly, she would have nailed the role of Badi Didi. The core cast remains exceptional. Shefali Shah is outstanding as always. She embodies Vartika so naturally now that it no longer feels like acting. It feels like she's a real Delhi police officer. Rajesh Tailang, Rasika Dugal, Gopal Dutt, Siddharth Bhardwaj and Anurag Arora form a team that feels completely lived in and believable. The background score deserves a mention too. In several scenes, the music is haunting, almost unsettling, which perfectly complements the show's tone. At times, it pushes into disturbing territory, heightening the emotional impact. Final thoughts. Even with its flaws, Delhi Crime Season 3 remains a compelling watch. It never becomes boring, it hooks you right from the first scene and keeps you engaged throughout. Yes, there are moments that feel rushed. Yes, the climax could have been handled better, and yes, the messaging around certain characters gets confusing, but the performances, the writing of the core team, the atmosphere, and the thematic depth still make this one of India's finest crime shows. When you compare it with other crime dramas, only handful like Patal Lok come close, but even then, Delhi Crime has its own unique emotional weight and grounded realism. With only 6 episodes, you'll probably finish it in one sitting. And if you enjoyed the first 2 seasons, Season 3 is absolutely worth your time. That's the review, guys. If you enjoyed the breakdown, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more such deep dive analysis. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.